Fighting really is my whole life. It really is.
BJ Penn was born to fight, man. That's what that kid was put on this earth to do. He's as legit and as badass and as real a fighter as you will ever meet in your life. I get goosebumps talking about it.
When you talk to fighters about all-time greats, there's one guy that everyone has on that list. That guy's BJ Penn.
You know, before we got involved in the UFC, our first kind of introduction to, I would say, kind of the sport and the people behind the sport was when me and Dana met John Lewis. You know, John was one of the few guys who actually had a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu back in the late 90s. One day, though, he said, hey, I'm going to bring this young kid over, and I want him to train with you. John went on to tell me that this kid was literally, I think he used the words prodigy, which ultimately became, you know, BJ's nickname.
All I knew is that BJ Penn had come and rolled with us. He was very talented at jiu-jitsu, and we liked him, and we wanted him in the UFC. I didn't know it at the time. BJ Penn is a very special individual.
BJ Penn! And he's down!
Obviously, nobody knew the potential of BJ Penn. And when he came out and just started steamrolling everybody, you know, BJ Penn took off and became a huge star for us.
BJ looking for the choke. He's got the choke. He's down. It's over. It's over. We have a new welterweight champion. A new welterweight champion. BJ Penn has the belt he so dearly has sought after. BJ Penn is the UFC lightweight champion. Just the second man in UFC history to win a championship in 2 different weight classes.
Number 2!
You couldn't think of a more qualified fighter to enter into the UFC Hall of Fame than BJ Penn. BJ Penn will go down in history as, without a doubt, one of the greatest of all time.
Fighting never leaves my mind for more than an hour. Birds fly and fish swim, and I do this.
Now it's my honor and pleasure to introduce to you the newest member of the UFC Hall of Fame, the 2-time 2-division world champion, the prodigy, a man I'm proud to call my friend, BJ Penn.
Okay, I asked Matt Hughes to come out and introduce me because he's the one who gave me the shot. He gave me my chance. He never had to fight BJ Penn. He did it because he was just a great champion and a great fighter, and he offered me the opportunity to make myself great. Another thing Matt also did for me is when he beat me the second time, he sent me down to the lightweight, which would actually be the thing that I'll be remembered for the most in my career, being the 2-time world champ and making all the other critics peanut butter and jealous, you know. Okay, I don't know where to start really. I never thought I would be involved with fighting or the UFC in 2015. All I ever wanted to do was just like my jiu-jitsu career. I became the world champion. I wanted to prove it to myself and then move on to something new. So after I fought my first fight against Joey Gilbert, I talked to Dana, and I was only 2 or 3 fights away from becoming the UFC lightweight champion. All I wanted to do was become the lightweight champion, beat Jens Pulver, and retire, and live a normal life. And I always knew the UFC would get this big, but I'm a small town guy, so you know, I just wanted to become the champion, prove to myself I could do it, go back to a normal life. And if anybody ever talked to me about the UFC, I'd be like, hey, yeah, I know about that. I used to be the champ once. Here's my belt. You know, and that was my whole dream. That was my biggest dream for the sport. And, you know, that's all I ever wanted to do. I wanted to come in, win the belt, walk away. but I ended up losing to Jens Pulver, which put a stop in my plans. And I was still so close, I said, I might as well, I can't quit yet. I can't quit. I have my game plan. I don't plan on doing this my whole life. I can't quit yet. So I had the fight with Kau Uno. It ends up being a draw. And then I'm there again. I'm like, man, you know, I still can't quit. When I do something, I want to get it done. So by the time I finally work my way back up and I fight Matt Hughes and I become the welterweight champion of the world, and at that point, I was in too deep. It was my identity. I couldn't get out after that. Everything was happening so fast, everything was so big, I couldn't go back to my original plan of my original game plan that I had coming into the UFC. So with that said, that being my identity, and my original game plan was to not be here this long and to not be here talking in 2015. I've broke many records, but yet I've always had a controversial career. Critics and fans ask me all the time, BJ, do you think you did enough with the talent you had? To them, I answer, no, I didn't do enough. I did way too much, more than I ever wanted to do. I would like to thank my family, my kids, Kulia and Ava, their mother, Shaylin Waiva, my father, my mother, my brothers, JD, Jay, Reagan, Kalani, my sister, Christina. I thank my whole family for always being supported, always coming out, supporting me. My family is just as famous as me because they backed me the whole way. I wanna thank Pat Tenori for standing behind me from day one, for standing behind the UFC. He was the first real brand to even try to get in and, you know, do something. Thank you very much, sir. I want to go into a lot of people that helped me through my martial arts career, and I'll say it in order of appearance. I want to thank my uncle Emmanuel, who talked me into having my first fight at 3 years old against this kid who kept taking my toys. I want to thank Tom Callis for introducing me to jiu-jitsu. I want to thank Ralph Gracie, because that's the guy who I imitated and emulated, and that's when you saw the man walking in the beginning with that look in his eye ready to fight. Ralph Gracie taught me that. He taught me to not be scared of anybody, and he taught me to fight anybody of any size. I want to thank Higan Machado, John Lewis, Steve Silva, Charuto, Andre Pederneiras, Javier Mendez, Crazy Bob Cook, Brian Johnston, Frank Shamrock, Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell, John Hackelman, Mark Coleman, Don Fry, Adrian Silva, Rudy Valentino, who's like a father figure to me, got me into my Hawaiian roots. I want to thank Matt Linlin. I want to thank Jason Perillo. I've never talked more about fighting with one man more than him. He'll call me, we'll talk about fighting, and I'll be like, you think this is the first talk I had about fighting today? I've been talking about fighting all day, kid. I want to thank Tony Aponte, who stuck with me forever. One of the greatest nutritionists of all time. I want to thank Troy Mandalones, Kenny Johnson, the McCauley brothers, Alan Goes, Marv Marinovich. I want to thank some personal friends who's always been by my side. I want to thank Gary Lovett for keeping me in order. I want to thank Rich Cho, Hoy Uehara, Dave Weintraub, Pedro Carrasco, Scott Hernandez, Yama Kimi. I want to thank the UFC staff. I want to thank Dana White for bringing me in when nobody believed, and Dana White knew I was going to be the best. He knew I was going to be the champion. I want to thank Lorenzo Fertitta for always just being a cool guy to me. Never had a problem with that man. I want to thank Frank Fertitta, Burt Watson, Bruce Buffer, Mike Goldberg, Joe Silva, and Reed Harris. I want to thank everybody from the UFC gym staff and the UFC gym for giving me something to retire on and to be involved with as I move on to the next career of my life. I want to thank Tony Amiglio for coming out. I want to thank Brian for always escorting me and taking care of me around this place. And if I forgot anybody, you saw how many punches I took. You know why I forgot. the number one people I gotta thank, made it all possible, is the fans. Thank you guys. I love you guys. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Hawaii's finest, the prodigy, BJ Penn.
You came out here pretty excited. You ran into the Octagon. You were excited about your first UFC appearance, weren't you?
I'm just here to get the title, you know? I don't care who I fight. I just want the title. Nothing personal. I'm put the gold on.
I'm a different fighter now, you know? I'm an experienced fighter. I'm the best fighter in the world.
Me and you know who the real fighter is right now.
The proud Hawaiian BJ Penn.